It's a question a lot of people don't want to talk about. Do you remember your first time? But when it comes to performing in this historic building, musicians want you to ask them what it was like to perform at the iconic Massey Hall. And we heard from artists from coast to coast.
It's such a special place, and you see all the other posters on the wall, and you've heard all the records, and yeah, it was very overwhelming and memorable, and I'm really glad to see that they're going to keep it going, and they're going to keep the spirit alive there.
Every show that I've ever thought was the best in my life, I think, happened at Massey Hall. I feel very lucky to have gotten to play there.
We've seen so many shows there, you know, as music fans. You know, we've seen everybody from Wilco to Ryan Adams, Bright Eyes, Blue Rodeo. There's been so many, Sam Roberts, so many incredible shows that I've seen there. So to be able to play on that same stage and offer somebody else that kind of night is something really special.
Massey Hall is probably the one venue on an extensive tour that I try to get to sound check early.
There's no other room or venue in the world that I have been in, either as a performer or as an audience member, that put such a spell on me.
Something about you, yeah.
And it was one of those shows on the tour we were, you know, that was the golden show. We were waiting for it and waiting for it. The anticipation was high, expectations are high.
It was a magical night, and I'm sad it's closing for a while, but excited to see what they're dreaming up. I think one phase of Massey is now done, and I'm honored to have been a part of that phase. And now they're on to the next one.
I love going up on stage before anyone else gets there and just singing a song with an acoustic and letting it resonate in the hall. And it's such an incredible feeling, and I really have not felt that kind of acoustic balance and projection in any other place in the world.
I remember just standing on that stage, massive ceiling above me. You know, I'd never been there before. And huge sold-out crowd, and it was one of those moments where I was like, how did I get here? You know, it was really cool, and I know all my bandmates felt the same way. It was one of those life-changing shows. You'll never forget it.
We were fortunate enough to open for the Sheepdogs at Massey Hall in March, and it's definitely a night that I'll never forget.
I think, you know, there's obviously every moment of playing there is special because we knew it was closing. I think for me a really special moment was my parents were in town because my dad is undergoing treatment for cancer, and I'm not sure how many opportunities he'll have to see us play live again. And at a moment I looked out and I could see my parents from where I was standing, and it really was a special moment for me to have my parents there who have supported us and our band for a very long time, to be able to take in such a, you know, pinnacle moment of our career and be part of that. And considering everything that's going on, it was definitely a special moment for me.
I also will never forget how proud my mom was. Gave her a lot of validation, and she texted me before I went on, and she asked if I could give her a shout out on stage. It would mean a lot to her. And I remember I told her I loved her on stage, and I could hear her scream from the back row. It was really cool.
They really revved up for the first show. We played 2 nights here the first time, and I remember the first night. I can only liken it to sort of, it felt like walking into a force field. The dawning of the realization that we're actually here, we're playing on this stage, and the weight of it, I really felt it. And it was probably the first time in a while, because we'd been touring so much, that I felt nervous going out there on the stage.
Part of what makes Massey Hall so special is that there's a sense of awe when you walk out on stage. You know, there's it's the scope and the size of the place. It's very high up. The fans are way above you, and there's not a lot of venues in Canada where you sort of feel that sense of awe, and that's kind of my favorite thing about Massey.
Playing at Massey Hall was a beautiful and surreal experience for me. It was my first time in the building, and so I'd never been to a show there before, which is kind of a crazy thing. The first show I was there for was my own.
It was a really special moment for Carrie and Caroline and I for so many reasons. Knowing that we were walking the same walk and on the same floorboards as so many great musicians before us made it that much more glorious.
Had the best gig, and I just remember at sound check asking the sound tech, hey, is there tons of reverb on my vocals? And he was like, no, man, that's the Massey verb.
It was a milestone moment in our careers. We will never ever forget that very magical night.
This is my favorite venue in the city to hear live music, and this weekend, like we've mentioned, these doors will be closing for 2 years as it undergoes renovations. The final performance, Gordon Lightfoot, and yes, if you're all wondering, I already have my tickets. Lindsay Dunn, City News.